June 14, 2019. The Forum, Los Angeles. Two rock legends, Ozzy Osbourne, 70 years old and battling Parkinson's, and Ace Frehley, 68 and fighting his own demons, shared a stage for what they both knew would be the final time. What happened after the last note was played became one of rock's most beautiful goodbyes. Nobody in the crowd knew it was the last time. They came to the Forum that night expecting a hell of a show, and that's what they got. Ozzy was headlining, doing his No More Tours 2 run, which everyone knew wasn't actually his last tour, because Ozzy had been retiring since the 90s, but this time felt different. His Parkinson's diagnosis had gone public earlier that year, and you could see it affecting him on stage. The tremors, the slower movements, the way Sharon watched from the wings like a hawk, ready to step in if needed. Ace Frehley wasn't on the official lineup. He was there as a surprise guest, something Ozzy's team had kept under wraps. Ace had his own health battles. Decades of substance abuse had taken their toll, and while he'd gotten sober, the damage was done. His hands weren't as fast as they used to be, and his voice was rougher. But none of that mattered. When you've got the spirit Ace had, technical perfection is beside the point. The two of them went way back, like way back. They'd first met in 1976 when Black Sabbath and Kiss were crossing paths on the festival circuit. Ozzy was still with Sabbath then, and Ace was at the height of his powers with Kiss, makeup and all. They'd hit it off immediately. Two guys who understood that rock and roll was supposed to be dangerous, unpredictable, a little bit insane. Over the years, they'd lived parallel lives in a lot of ways. Both had struggled with addiction so severe it should have killed them multiple times. Both had been kicked out of their original bands. Both had somehow clawed their way back, built solo careers, and survived when nobody thought they would. They weren't just friends, they were brothers in the truest sense, bonded by shared damage and the kind of understanding that only comes from walking through hell together. The Forum was packed that night. 17,500 people, all there for Ozzy. The show had been going for about 90 minutes, and Ozzy was deep into his set. He'd already done Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, Flying High Again, all the classics. His voice was holding up better than anyone expected, that signature Ozzy wail still cutting through, even if it took more effort now. Then, right before I Don't Know, Ozzy stopped. The band kept playing the intro, looping it, while Ozzy walked to the edge of the stage. Sharon appeared in the wings, concerned, probably thinking he needed a break, but Ozzy waved her off and grabbed the mic. "You know," he said, his voice a little shaky, "I've been doing this a long time. Longer than I probably should have." The crowd cheered, but there was something in his tone that made them quiet down fast. "And along the way, I've made some incredible friends. Brothers, really. Guys who've seen me at my worst and somehow stuck around anyway." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "One of those guys is here tonight. And I gotta be honest with you, this might be the last time we do this together. So, I want you to help me welcome my brother, my friend, the spaceman himself, Ace fucking Frehley." The Forum erupted. People were losing their minds. Kiss fans, Ozzy fans, everyone was on their feet. And then Ace walked out from stage left, carrying his signature Gibson Les Paul, grinning that crooked grin he'd been famous for since the 70s. He looked good for 68, still had that rebel energy, even if his walk was a little slower. He plugged in, and you could see him and Ozzy exchange a look, the kind of look that said everything without words. This was it. They both knew it. They launched into I Don't Know, but with Ace's lead guitar adding this whole other dimension. His playing style was so different from Zakk Wylde's. Less technical, more raw, more chaotic. It was perfect. The song had always been about confusion, about not having answers, and Ace's guitar work captured that feeling exactly. Then they did Iron Man, a Black Sabbath classic that Ace had always loved. Watching these two rock dinosaurs trade riffs on one of the heaviest songs ever written was something else. Ace's space rock style colliding with Sabbath's doom metal created this sound that shouldn't have worked, but absolutely did. The third and final song was Paranoid. The crowd was singing so loud you could barely hear Ozzy. Ace was grinning the whole time, looking like he was 25 again, lost in the music the way he used to get lost back in the 70s. For those 4 minutes, neither of them was sick, neither was old, neither was facing down mortality. They were just two guys playing rock and roll, doing what they were born to do. When the last chord rang out, Ozzy and Ace stood there for a second, just looking at each other. Then Ozzy pulled Ace into a hug, a real hug, not one of those bro pat-on-the-back things. A hug that said, "I love you," without having to say it. The crowd was going absolutely insane, chanting both their names. Ace took a bow, waved to the crowd, and walked off stage. Ozzy watched him go, then wiped his eyes before turning back to the audience. "Give it up for the spaceman!" he shouted, but his voice cracked a little. Backstage, that's where the real moment happened. Ozzy finished the rest of his set, another 30 minutes of classics. When he finally came off stage, exhausted and drenched in sweat, Ace was waiting in the wings. Sharon was there too, along with Ozzy's kids, Jack and Kelly, and some of the crew. Everyone could feel it, that weight in the air when something important is happening. Ozzy's assistant brought him a towel and some water. He took a long drink, caught his breath, then looked at Ace. "Let's go to the dressing room," he said, "just us." They disappeared down the hallway together, two old warriors who needed to talk without an audience. The dressing room door closed, and for about 20 minutes, nobody heard anything. Sharon paced outside, looking worried. Jack kept checking his watch. Kelly was crying, though she tried to hide it. When the door finally opened, both Ozzy and Ace were crying, not sobbing, but tears were definitely flowing. They came out together, arms around each other's shoulders, and that's when Ozzy said something that everyone within earshot remembered. "This guy," Ozzy said, gesturing to Ace, "saved my life more times than I can count. And I don't just mean keeping me out of trouble, though God knows he did that too. I mean, he reminded me why I was still here, why I kept going even when I didn't want to." Ace's voice was rougher than usual when he spoke. "Same, brother." "Same," Sharon stepped forward, and for once she wasn't in manager mode. She was just a wife watching her husband say goodbye to someone who mattered. She hugged Ace too, whispered something in his ear that made him nod. "What'd you guys talk about in there?" Jack asked, trying to lighten the mood a little. Ozzy and Ace exchanged another look, that same wordless communication. Then Ace grinned. "Just boring old man shit, you know, health stuff, grandkids, where we left our car keys." Everyone laughed, but it was that kind of laugh that's covering up deeper feelings. "Nah, but for real," Ace continued, getting serious. "We talked about the old days, the crazy shit we survived, the friends we lost along the way. Randy, Dimebag, Lemmy, all the guys who aren't here anymore." His voice got quieter. "We talked about how lucky we are to still be standing, and we talked about what happens next." "What does happen next?" Kelly asked. Ozzy looked at her, then at Ace. "We live, darling. That's what happens next. We wake up, we appreciate what we've got, and we live while we still can." Ace nodded. "And we stop pretending we're gonna live forever. We both know this was probably the last time we'll share a stage. My hands aren't what they used to be, and Oz has his own battles, but you know what? We went out playing the music we love with people we love. How many guys can say that?" The room was silent except for some sniffling. Even the crew members, these tough road guys who'd seen everything, were getting emotional. "I want you all to know something," Ozzy said, addressing everyone there. "Ace and we've done some stupid shit over the years. We've hurt people, made bad choices, nearly killed ourselves more times than I can count. But through all of it, we had each other's backs. And that's what matters, not the mistakes, but the fact that we never gave up on each other." Ace pulled out his phone, which was funny because he was notorious for never knowing how to use technology, and took a selfie with Ozzy. "For the memories," he said. That photo would later be posted on both their social media accounts with the caption, "Brothers for life. Last ride together. Love you, man." They spent another hour backstage, just hanging out, telling stories, laughing about old times. Ace's wife was there, and Sharon, and they all shared that bittersweet feeling of knowing something beautiful was ending. When it was finally time to leave, Ace and Ozzy stood in the hallway outside the dressing rooms. The crew was packing up, the venue was emptying out, but these two were still there, not quite ready to say the final goodbye. "You gonna be okay?" Ace asked. "I'm gonna try," Ozzy said. "The Parkinson's is gonna get worse. The doctors are pretty clear about that. But I've got Sharon, I've got the kids, I've got the grandkids. I'll be all right." "And you've got the music," Ace added. "Even if you can't perform anymore, you've still got the music." "Yeah," Ozzy agreed. "We've always got that." Ace shifted his guitar case to his other hand. "And you? You gonna stay clean?" Ace had been sober for a few years by then, but it was always a day-by-day thing. "That's the plan," he said. "Made it this far, might as well keep going. Besides, I promised you I would." "Damn right you did," Ozzy said, "and I'm holding you to it." They hugged one more time, and this time it was even longer. Two guys who'd seen the absolute worst of what life and fame could do, who'd somehow made it through to the other side, saying goodbye to a chapter of their lives. "Love you, brother," Ozzy said. "Love you too, Oz," Ace replied. And then Ace was walking down the hallway, guitar case in hand, heading toward the exit. Ozzy watched him go until he disappeared around the corner. Sharon came up beside her husband and took his hand. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ozzy said, though his voice was thick with emotion. "It's just, that's probably the last time I'll ever see him." "Maybe not," Sharon said softly. "You never know." But they both knew. They could feel it. The next time they'd see Ace would probably be at a funeral. Hopefully not for a long time, but reality was reality. The story of that night spread through the rock community fast. Videos of the performance went viral. The photo of Ozzy and Ace backstage, both with tears in their eyes, became iconic. Fans who'd been there talked about how special it felt, how you could sense the significance of the moment, even if you didn't know the full story. Music journalists wrote about it. Other musicians commented on it. Eddie Vedder posted about how seeing those two together reminded him why he'd gotten into music in the first place. Dave Grohl called it one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in rock and roll. But the most moving tribute came from an unexpected source. A few days after the show, Elton John, Ozzy's longtime friend and fellow survivor, posted a long message on social media. "Ozzy and Ace showed us something important the other night. They showed us that rock and roll isn't just about the music. It's about the connections we make, the people we travel this insane journey with. They showed us that saying goodbye can be an act of love. And they showed us that even when everything's falling apart, even when your body's failing you and time's running out, you can still choose grace, dignity, and brotherhood. That's the real legacy of rock and roll." When Ozzy passed away in 2025, Ace was one of the first people to release a statement. It was short, just a few sentences, but it said everything. "I lost my brother today. We played our last show together in 2019, and I'm grateful we got to do that. We said everything that needed to be said. Love you forever, Oz. Save me a spot up there. The spaceman will see you when I see you." At Ozzy's funeral, Ace played Iron Man on acoustic guitar. His hands shook the whole time. Whether from age or emotion, no one could tell. Probably both. But he got through it, and when he finished, he looked up at the sky and said, "That one was for you, brother." The last time Ozzy Osbourne and Ace Frehley played together wasn't just a concert. It was a goodbye, a celebration, a testament to friendship that survived addiction, fame, failure, and every other obstacle life threw at them. It was two legends acknowledging that the end was coming and choosing to face it together, with love and respect and all the dignity they'd earned through decades of survival. Rock and roll gave us a lot of things: great music, wild stories, unforgettable moments. But that night at the Forum in 2019, it gave us something even more valuable. A reminder that, at the end of the day, it's the people who matter, the brothers you make along the way, the hands you hold when everything else falls apart. Ozzy and Ace knew that, and in their final performance together, they made sure the rest of us knew it too.